They say broken attracts broken, but what happens when shattered meets untouchable? My husband's betrayal left me hollow. Then a scandal-drenched billionaire walked into my bookstore at midnight, not for books, but running from paparazzi. What he said next changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and second chances. Before we dive into this story, if you love tales about karma, unexpected romance, and people getting exactly what they deserve, hit that like button right now and subscribe, because you won't believe where this journey takes us. My name is Destiny, and for 8 years I thought I was living the dream. I owned a beautiful bookstore in Philadelphia called Pages and Poetry, the kind of place with exposed brick walls, the smell of old paper and fresh coffee, and floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with stories about other people's lives. Meanwhile, I thought I was living my own perfect story. I was married to Lawrence, a cardiac surgeon who wore expensive suits and had a smile that could charm anyone in the room. We had the brownstone, the dinner parties, the charity galas, where people whispered about what a stunning couple we made. I was the supportive wife, the successful small business owner, the woman who had it all figured out. Except I didn't, because while I was organizing book launches and recommending romance novels to customers, my husband was writing his own twisted plot with someone else. It started with small things I tried to ignore. Late nights at the hospital that felt too frequent, a distance in his eyes when he looked at me, the way he'd tilt his phone away whenever I walked past. But I pushed those thoughts down, told myself I was being paranoid, that successful marriages required trust. I was such a fool. The truth came crashing down on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was looking for his gym membership card in his bag because mine had expired. And there, tucked inside a pocket I almost missed, were hotel receipts, 3 of them, all from the past month. All from a boutique hotel downtown that we'd never been to together. When I confronted him that night, Lawrence looked me dead in the eye and called me insecure. He said I was letting my imagination run wild, that those receipts were from covering shifts for colleagues, that I was being ridiculous. He made me feel crazy for questioning him, but something in my gut wouldn't let it go. My best friend Camille suggested hiring a private investigator. And after 2 sleepless weeks, I agreed. 3 weeks later, I had my answer. Her name was Gabrielle. She was 26, worked in pharmaceutical sales, and had been sleeping with my husband for 2 years. 2 years. That meant almost half our marriage was a lie. The investigator's report had photos of them holding hands at restaurants, kissing in parking garages, her leaving our house when I was at work, our house. She'd been in our home. And the final knife in my heart, Lawrence had already consulted a divorce attorney. He was planning to leave me for her. When I finally confronted him with the evidence, he didn't even have the decency to deny it. He just looked at me with this cold expression and said, "You stopped being exciting years ago, Destiny. She makes me feel alive." Those words shattered something inside me that I didn't know could break. He moved out that same night, packed 2 suitcases, and left without even saying he was sorry. No remorse, no regret, just gone. The next 3 months were the darkest of my life. I couldn't eat without feeling sick. I couldn't sleep without nightmares. My bookstore, the place that had always been my sanctuary, felt like a prison because I couldn't focus on anything. Depression wrapped around me like a heavy blanket I couldn't throw off. I kept asking myself what was wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't I exciting? I looked in the mirror and saw someone worthless, someone so easy to discard. The divorce proceedings started, and Lawrence wanted half of my bookstore's value. The business I'd built from nothing, before I even met him. Our mutual friends started taking sides, and so many of them just disappeared from my life completely. And Gabrielle, she started posting photos on social media, flaunting her relationship with my husband, my life, like she'd won some prize. I felt erased, invisible, like I never mattered at all. I started spending nights at the bookstore because I couldn't stand being in my empty apartment. I'd restock shelves at midnight, organize sections that didn't need organizing, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling. That's where I was 3 months after Lawrence left, crying over a stack of poetry books at 11 o'clock at night, when someone started pounding on my door. Aggressive, desperate pounding that made my heart jump into my throat. Through the glass door, I could see a tall man in an expensive suit looking over his shoulder like he was being chased. Every instinct told me not to open that door, but there was something in his face, some kind of desperation I recognized, and against every bit of common sense I had left, I unlocked it and let him in. He practically fell through the doorway, breathing hard, and immediately said, "I'll give you $5,000 to let me hide here for an hour." That's when I recognized him. Devin Crawford, hotel heir, tabloid regular, Manhattan's most eligible bachelor who refused to settle down. I'd seen his face on magazine covers at checkout lines, usually with some headline about which married woman or actress he'd been spotted with. And now he was in my bookstore, running from paparazzi after apparently being photographed leaving some socialite's apartment. I looked at him, this billionaire playboy with his perfect hair and his designer shoes, and something inside me just snapped. I laughed, actually laughed. "I don't need your money," I told him, "but you can stay." The broken, recognizing the broken. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him really looking at me, noticing my swollen eyes, the tears still wet on my cheeks. But he didn't ask. He just nodded and said, "Thank you." We stood there in awkward silence for a few minutes before he noticed the poetry section I'd been working on. He picked up a book of Pablo Neruda and asked if I'd read it, and somehow, at midnight in my empty bookstore, I found myself talking to a billionaire about poetry and pain. The tabloid story, he told me, wasn't quite what people thought. The married woman was his godmother going through a crisis, and he'd been comforting her. But he admitted his reputation was real. He'd never committed to anyone, never believed in lasting love. "My parents had a bitter marriage," he said quietly. "Taught me that love expires, that it's better to enjoy something temporary than suffer through something permanent." I understood that more than he knew. After an hour, the paparazzi were gone. And so was Devin. I thought that would be the end of it. Just a strange story to tell Camille. But the next night, he came back. And the night after that. For 2 weeks, Devin Crawford showed up at my bookstore after hours, and we'd talk about books, about life, about all the ways people hurt each other and themselves. He never asked about why I'd been crying that first night, and I never explained. It felt like a space where we could both just exist without our damage on display. Then, after 2 weeks of this strange friendship, he made me an offer that sounded insane. He wanted me to pretend to be his girlfriend for 6 months. "The tabloids are destroying me, Diane," he said. "My family won't stop pushing for marriage, and you need help fighting your husband's claim on your bookstore. I can give you $200,000 and the best attorneys in the state." I told him absolutely not. I wasn't some prop to fix his image, some charity case he could throw money at. But then he said something that stopped me cold. "We both need to prove something, Destiny. You need to show yourself you're not broken. I need to figure out if I'm even capable of commitment. No romance, no strings, just an exploration. Both of us in complete control." Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the anger at Lawrence and Gabrielle, living their happy life while I crumbled. Maybe it was the desperate need to feel like I mattered to someone, even if it was fake. But I agreed. We signed an actual contract. 6 months, clear boundaries. We were both in control. That's what I kept telling myself. The public appearances started immediately. Charity events where Devin would hold my hand and introduce me to people who'd never looked twice at someone like me. Restaurant openings where photographers captured us laughing over wine. Suddenly, my face was in society pages next to his, and the headlines called me mysterious, elegant, the woman who finally tamed Devin Crawford. It was all performance, all carefully staged. But something strange happened. It started working. Not just for Devin's image, but for me. I felt alive again. When Lawrence saw those photos, I saw jealousy flash across his face for the first time. When Gabrielle posted passive-aggressive comments about new money seeking old money, I just smiled. Because for the first time in months, I felt powerful. But 4 months into our arrangement, something shifted. The lines we'd drawn so carefully started to blur. Devon's gestures stopped feeling like performance and started feeling real. He remembered that I took my tea with honey and lemon. He bought rare first editions for my bookstore without being asked. Our late-night conversations went deeper, past surface pain, into real vulnerability. One night, sitting in his penthouse, after some gala, he looked at me and said, "I've dated hundreds of women, Destiny, but I've never known anyone like you." My walls were crumbling, and I was terrified, because I was catching feelings for someone I'd promised myself I'd never catch feelings for. This was supposed to be fake, controlled, safe. But nothing about what I felt was safe. And the fear that I'd be destroyed again, that this was all just another elaborate betrayal waiting to happen, kept me up at night. That's when Lawrence's karma started catching up with him. Camille heard through the grapevine that Gabrielle had cheated on him with one of his colleagues. He'd discovered she was using him for his money, that she'd been dating someone else the entire time. The woman who destroyed my marriage had done the same thing to him, and then Lawrence showed up at my bookstore one afternoon, looking nothing like the confident surgeon who'd walked out on me. He looked broken. "You were the real one," he said, actually begging. "I made a mistake. Gabrielle never loved me. She was using me the whole time. But you and I, Destiny, we were real. Please, can we try again?" I stared at this man who'd called me boring, who'd thrown away 8 years like they meant nothing, who'd let his mistress parade around in my life like a trophy. And I felt absolutely nothing for him. No anger, no satisfaction, just emptiness. "No," I said simply. "You made your choice. Now live with it." Devon was picking me up that afternoon and witnessed the whole thing. He saw the strength in me that I didn't even know I had. And that night he held me differently, like I was precious, like I was real. The 6 months were almost over. Devon's family was hosting a gala where he was expected to announce our engagement, the grand finale of our arrangement. But the night before, everything fell apart. We were in my apartment, and Devon couldn't meet my eyes. Finally, he said, "I need to tell you the truth about why I started this." My blood ran cold. Here it comes, I thought. The other betrayal, the other lie. "The arrangement was never really about the tabloids," he said quietly. "I saw you that first night, saw someone as broken as me, but still standing, and I felt something I'd never felt before. I was too scared to just ask you out, so I created this elaborate plan where I could be close to you without risking real rejection. I fell in love with you the moment you called me broken, and let me in anyway. I couldn't breathe. You manipulated me," I whispered. "You used my pain. You saw how destroyed I was, and you took advantage of it." "No," he said desperately. "I gave you control. I gave you money, resources, everything you needed. I never lied about what I felt. I just didn't tell you soon enough." I left, walked out of my own apartment and spent the night at Camille's, crying all over again. She let me rage for an hour before she finally said, "But did he actually hurt you, Destiny? Or did he help you heal?" I wanted to argue with her, but I couldn't, because when I thought about the past 6 months, I didn't think about manipulation. I thought about laughter, growth, feeling seen for the first time in years. Devon had been consistent, genuine in ways Lawrence never was. And the terrifying truth? I wasn't angry because he'd deceived me. I was angry because I loved him. And love meant vulnerability. And vulnerability meant I could be destroyed again. Meanwhile, Lawrence's life continued its spectacular collapse. He contacted me one more time, desperate and pathetic. Gabrielle had taken him for thousands in gifts before disappearing completely. His reputation at the hospital was ruined because colleagues knew about his affair, knew he was unethical and untrustworthy. There was even an investigation into whether he'd shown favoritism to Gabrielle's pharmaceutical company. He'd lost everything: his money, his reputation, his pride. He was alone, exactly where he'd left me. Karma had come full circle, and I felt absolutely nothing for him. He was a stranger, a cautionary tale, nothing more. The night of the gala, I made a decision. I put on the most beautiful dress I owned, did my makeup, and showed up unannounced. Devin was on stage, looking devastated, about to announce our breakup to the entire ballroom, full of Philadelphia's elite. I walked through those doors, and every eye turned to me, including his. "Before you say anything," I called out, my voice carrying across the silent room, "let me speak." I walked up to that stage, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. And I looked at Devin Crawford, this billionaire playboy who'd somehow become the most real thing in my life. "You saw me when I was invisible," I said. "You challenged me when I was broken. You chose me every single day when you could have chosen anyone. Maybe this started as an arrangement, but it became real the moment we started being honest." Devin stared at me like I was a miracle he didn't deserve. Then he took the microphone and addressed the entire ballroom. "I've spent 41 years running from love because I was terrified of ending up like my parents. Then I met a woman who was brave enough to try again after being destroyed. And I realized that the real fear isn't loving and losing. It's never loving at all." He got down on one knee, not with a ring, not with a plan, just with raw honesty. "I'm not asking you to marry me tonight," he said. "I'm asking if we can start over. No contract, no timeline, no performance, just honesty. And whatever we build from there." I looked at this man who'd seen me at my absolute lowest and somehow made me believe I could be more. "Let's be terrified together," I said. And when he kissed me, it wasn't for cameras or appearances. It was real. Finally, completely real. 6 months later, my bookstore is thriving. Devin invested in expansion, but I maintained complete control. He proposed for real on a random Tuesday. No fanfare, just us and Neruda's poetry. I said yes. "We're planning a small wedding with only people who matter." Lawrence sent one final bitter message that I deleted without reading. "Camille is my maid of honor. Devin's godmother is officiating." And I learned something that changed everything. They say broken attracts broken. But I learned that sometimes two people brave enough to heal can build something unbreakable. Love isn't about being perfect or exciting or never making mistakes. It's about being honest, showing up, and choosing each other, even when you're terrified. Especially when you're terrified. My first marriage was a beautiful lie. My second chance is a messy, honest, absolutely real truth. And I wouldn't change a single moment of the pain that led me here, because it led me to myself. And then it led me to him. So what do you think? Did Devin manipulate me, or did he save me? And did Lawrence get the karma he deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story touched you, or if you believe in second chances, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about love, karma, and unexpected connections. And share this with someone who needs to hear that being broken doesn't mean staying broken. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.